All right, I know what you guys are saying. I'm not normally on Fridays. We're back on Fridays now. There's a lot of new information. Kickoffs are literally only, 2-3 weeks away? As you can see, a little bit of Super Rugby preseason in the background. Let's get into it.
I need all the wins, yeah. Ain't no L's, I gotta get a no call and quits, yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard.
Here comes Danny Tucci-Zala, back to Baker, Baker with the fin. Kurt Baker in for DC, and this may well do it old glory with the drive. The New Zealand Sevens legend, Kurt Baker with the cherry on top.
Can you believe it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the On the Line Rugby Podcast, a show brought to you by the Believe Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Nagaishi, and welcome back. Man, I think I should have probably talked about this on Monday. I think I'm just going to do them on Friday. Maybe do a little bit of a preview here and there and reactions on Monday. Let's hope we keep that schedule. But I was really impressed, I think, with a lot of Six Nations content. I managed to get up and watch all the games. Wasn't exactly too into the England and Italy game. I'll be totally frank. We won't be really talking about that. But the rest of them have a lot of interesting takes on it. So let's get into it. I definitely think that as a whole, I think the Ireland-France game is really what set the tone for a lot of what we're going to expect out of the Northern Hemisphere going forward, not only in the Six Nations, but just in general, especially in the Autumn Nations, just because of the way that Ireland handled business. You could tell from the jump, really, that Ireland was just there to smack around France, and which is arguably probably their toughest matchup, I would say, outside of maybe if England was to maybe get a little resurgent or Scotland was to maybe stop doing YOLO plays. But, we'll talk about that. I think what really helped the Irish really in this game was losing Paul Willemse to a bunch of really avoidable calls. I mean, okay, look. There's a lot of high tackles that I will say are accidental. Normally a guy trips, falls into contact, whatever. A hip drop is kind of expected in that point. But, when you're looking at these plays, especially from the Paul Willemse ones, he went too high to begin with. He doesn't sink his hips. He doesn't try to adjust his body height, at least at the top torso end. And on top of that, he's hitting on average just above the pec and then scooting up. And I think that's what really hurt him. Obviously, the shoulder hits were huge in almost the cleanouts for French and for Les Blues. So that double yellow was eventually going to turn into a red. I really thought it probably should have been a red on that first one. But, Ben O'Keefe be Ben O'Keefe and just be letting stuff play out. But if you look at the whole thing from the get-go, once they lost Paul Willemse, who's probably one of their best players, I think it really hurt their momentum. They looked a little bit broken, obviously heading into the opening half. They just from the downhill ball that guys like Kalen Doris and friends were bringing to the table, what Tog Byrne was able to do on multiple occasions, just stacking up runs. Feed that man, because every time something happens, it's normally because of something that he did, whether minor or major. Tog Byrne is pretty much involved in all the phases, I think, in this game, and it's a wonderful thing to see. It's one of my favorite players. I love that he's a lock that brings a prop mentality, but also has the athleticism of a back row player. So fun to watch. I think just what we saw on the whole overall for the tone was just obviously physicality and constantly being around the ball. Ireland was just capitalizing on everything that the French were giving them, and it was a lot, whether it was knock-ons to really terrible kick play, had a couple bad turnovers on the ground for not releasing. Everything, they were just taking it and running with it. And I think the biggest beneficiary from that would be Harry Crowley. I wasn't really expecting Ireland to be that resurgent. Obviously, they're returning in a lot of their players, but losing Johnny Sexton, losing a captain like that, who normally when he leaves the field ends up being a terrible travesty for most of the players out there. A lot of the guys haven't been really able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Take over, I guess. Overcome the issues. There we go. Overcome the loss of Johnny. And obviously having him not out there would have been an interesting find. And I was kind of interested as to why they put in Jack Crowley. He's a guy I probably never really watched. I've heard good things, never really seen it on tape. But watch him on the field. That's one thing I will say, whether he learned it from Sexton or someone else on the staff and Andy Farrell just had him go. the guy was really well placed. He kept his level head around the pitch, no matter if it was ups or downs. The guy just kept going to the next route, next man up, next rep, ball out. And that's exactly what I saw the entire way. I think he could be a good successor to Johnny Sexton. He had a little bit of that Sexton flair, from a little cross kick that he did with a grub to even a little bit of game management when it comes to kicking. I think he did a very good balance of taking it up to the line, which is what I like as a 10 to do, not just be a game manager. And obviously the kicking play to kick for space, I think he did a great job with that. He obviously had a couple of misplaced kicks here and there, but I think I would give his performance like about an 8.25, 8.5, easy out of 10. I definitely think that he would be a great successor moving forward. And obviously best time to start him would be now, just because you have now 4 years to get him World Cup ready. And I think he'll probably be the starter if he keeps this up at this rate with his development to the World Cup in Australia. So I'm really excited to see him. I would say the only time France ever looked really comfortable in that game was really just watching when Ireland started to give up a little bit of that, I'm not going to say physical edge, but giving up needless things. Basically always being on the back foot. Whether it was penalties, they gave up a lot of needless ones, especially at the ruck. But just down the stretch from the last 20 minutes when they started to give away a lot of points to France, that's the only time they really look comfortable. Whether that was the replacements that came onto the field or just lack of discipline to finish the game, it is what it is. But it was nice to see that both sides kind of played out the way they did. Obviously that Peno try is probably but it was easy contender for try of the week for me, at least and especially for this game. But I think my favorite one would have to be the Togburn one at about the end of the first half. It was beautiful, little chip and offload pass. I mean, we saw another one just like it with Finros and Duhan van der Merwe, and that in a game we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think that was just pure bliss. Obviously, like I said, with Togburn, the guy runs like a back rower, plays like a prop, and is a lock. You can't really dock anything on it. It's probably one of the best things that ever happened to Ireland. As for the English game, I did miss most of it, so I'm not going to lie. There's not a lot for me to personally talk about other than the last 20 minutes when I saw Italy going off. By the looks of it, most of it was just off of needless penalties, at least from when I was watching. Obviously, England started to give up a little bit. I noticed a lot of Mauro Itoje's stuff that when he was on the field, kind of bled into it. And then that kind of led into, obviously, that Monty Ioane try that everyone's talking about. The Italians just wanted that bonus point loss, and they got it. And I think that's really the one thing that I could glean from that, was that even the announcers were saying it, and I saw it too, they didn't have to really give up that many penalties to George Ford to just be chipping kicks in. I think when Italy is in a better place, perhaps Michele Lamuro and Capuozzo can just kind of get in the groove better and just learn with discipline and stop being a little bit chippy. They can kind of learn to kind of help the squad out and be ready, because in the future they could be an interesting threat. Now, I know Italy has primarily been probably one of the lowlights of the Six Nations. I think that could change. Everything is ultra competitive nowadays. I think we're seeing a lot where the tier 2 nations really show up, and that could be one of them. Italy, deservedly so, should have got a win there, and they let that one go, just like their counterparts to the north in Wales. I don't really know what to really properly say with my frustrations on that game, just because they were getting blown out in the first 20 minutes, and I really didn't think that game was going to be watchable, but they really turned it around to the end of the half. To go from 4 penalties in the first, 5-10 minutes to giving up nothing and having Scotland just penalty after penalty after penalty in the first half to really separate themselves, get a little bit of points on the block. Obviously, they're going to want that missed conversion back. That's really what killed them and helped lose the game. But, they had an easy hole to which they could have separated with Scotland. Now, Duhan van der Merwe, props up to him. The guy got 2 tries. He's a beast. I still don't understand why South Africa didn't pick him up for the wing. Obviously, I mean, there is a deep depth chart on that side, but still, the guy is talented. I don't think we can even really deny that. And, watching his, I think his second try when he probably ran the whole length of the field, if you account for the time where he ran across the entirety of half the field to get to the corner, was impressive. Obviously, his offload to Finn Russell was good. In terms of my kind of grade, I would say on Finn Russell, I would say it was probably one of his meh games. I wouldn't say he was fantastic like his time in Racing 92 or his earlier times in Scotland when they had the Grand Slam, or I wouldn't say it was as bad as that time he got a red card in a match and gets easily sent off for shoulder charges. But, such is life. You can't always expect perfect. But with Finn Russell, you're going to get those YOLO plays of brilliance and you're going to get a whole bunch of crap. And thankfully speaking, we got a decent game. So I'm impressed. But yeah, no, Scotland easily blew that lead. I was really expecting them to really keep the pressure on, I guess you could say, on Wales. I'm glad to see Wales, though, did come back up. Second half, obviously, Warren Gatland is not a fan of mediocrity. He's going to coach them out of it. Probably a bunch of things were said in the locker room. Some things maybe have been thrown. Who knows? But obviously, Wales got back to where they were. I think that if you look at the squad, it's an indictment of what Eddie Jones should do with Australia when it comes to just a lot of the guys retired. Obviously, Leigh Halfpenny left, Alan Jones left, Justin Tipuric left. You lose, I think, Talupe Faletau, even if he's still playing, is probably out with an injury according to fantasy. So, and Louis Rees-Zammit left. So, you lost a lot of your, I'm not going to say, especially with Rees-Zammit's senior leadership, but you lost a lot of your premier talent that was on the team, at least by name. Dewey Lake is still inoperable. Bunch of other guys, they're all out. So it was a lot of inexperienced or borderline uncapped to, meh players out on there. And a lot of guys I really don't know, but they did a damn good job of really just plugging up all the holes in the second half and getting back to the Wales that I learned to love when I started watching rugby. The old Wales in 2018, 2019 was all about downhill power, defending at the breakdown, great game line success, killing it on those extremely manageable chip and chase goals. That's what they were. And they shined in the second half. Tons of those things. It was easily fixable. And they just came out and just rattled off a flawless, what would have been a flawless, 50 minutes from the first 10 to like the last, to like the 60th. Yeah. They did a good job. I think the biggest thing they lacked early was an early hit in the ruck, watching, that led to the Duhan try that happened for both of them. Actually, they just weren't spreading out as much. I think when you look at both of those plays, they were easily all watching the breakdown. I easily could have saw them spread out. Obviously, a couple guys did, Ryan Elias tried, but you weren't really getting a lot of that cohesiveness. Rio Dyer can do it all. You're going to have these giant holes that a semi can drive through, and these things will happen. So looking back at that, I think they're going to want that back. They're going to easily try to maybe spread the line down. They got to get back into it. I think another thing that they really missed, obviously, was that conversion that'll come back to haunt them. They'll have a chance to clean all this up. I think a lot of this is easily fixable, just like Italy with their discipline. I think once they fix that, and they're basically, because they gave the game away. I mean, they had I think it was a 17 or so point lead, if I'm not mistaken, going into the 60th minute, and they just blew it all away through knock-ons, not releasing at the ruck, bad penalties. You hate to see it, but we all know you can do better, and they have to go back to their OG game plan, because obviously in those 50 minutes, they dominated not only the turnover margin, they dominated the penalty margin, but they dominated time of possession, and they dominated territory. And that's what Wales does. That's obviously what Ireland does. But when you look at a Wales team, they thrive on that ball possession. They need to keep that going. I think getting a bunch of those guys like Dewey Lake eventually back would be great. Having George North in the lineup would be amazing. But obviously the guy's old, so got to give him here and there. I definitely think that it could have went either way. But given that, I didn't think that game was going to be close at all. But props to Wales, props to Willem Dafoe. I think we can get this thing turned around. But It's going to take a lot of work. I think a lot more than Italy, in my personal opinion. But that's just how it be. In terms of England versus Wales for this weekend, I'm not exactly excited for the matchup. I think that England matches very well with Wales this time. With George Ford being the vice captain, Alex Mitchell, who for his, I believe it was his debut for England, don't quote me on that, did gangbusters. He looked almost as good as he did in Northampton. I'm proud of him to see that, to have a young guy come up in that 9 jersey and have George Ford manage the game the way he did was impressive. I wasn't exactly expecting the game that was performed out of by Freddie Stewart. Was expecting a little bit more. Perhaps we'll see this in Wales where it's going to be a possession match where a lot of high ball will be played. With Wales, I think we're going to see a lot of tight matchups. It's going to come down to penalties. It's going to come down to who makes it. And if Wales misses, it's going to be a very bad day for them. George Ford is pretty much automatic. Freddie Stewart, pretty much automatic. You can't really be giving them free open opportunities at goal. And you can't be giving up mauls because Mara Itoje versus Adam Beard will be a nasty matchup, but it is a matchup that could go either way. If you look at the score, I probably have England plus 3.5. I would probably like to see a drop goal in the game. Obviously, I don't know. Perhaps maybe a conversion again, but it'll be a close one. I think it'll be in the, easy 40 points combined. So we're probably a 21-24 type of game, maybe less. We'll see. As for Scotland versus France, I definitely would like to see Scotland win versus the French, but with the way the French are playing, especially when they started feeling comfortable in that game versus Ireland, we will see a lot of that playback. They're going to want revenge. Fabien Galthié is not going to let Gregor Townsend and friends come into town and just wreck house. They're going to try to fix things up. Damien Penaud is going to want to be fed. He was not getting the ball as much as I would have liked in that game. I felt like that was a very big Thomas Ramos game, and it just wasn't the on-brand team that I was expecting, especially in the centers. You had Gael Fiku, who went off. Jonathan Dante did not really get the ball a lot. I was expecting him, on my fantasy team at least, to get the ball on the goal line with Paul Malvaca and just bowl that thing in. Perhaps we'll see that a little bit more because Scotland will give up penalties. They will give up these easy gimme calls, and I think that will be what changes them. I'm expecting at least a 9.5 to 10 point spread between them. Perhaps it'll be a 25 to 15 game. Maybe Finn Russell misses one. Maybe it's a penalty try. Who knows? But Duhan's probably going to get one. We'll see what happens on the wing outside of that. The back line looks a little interesting. Forward pack, I was really impressed with Matt Fagerson's performance. I need a little bit more out of that back row, though, so we'll see what happens. I think this is going to be an interesting matchup next to their match with Ireland. Obviously, Ireland versus Italy, I think it's pretty much said. With the way Ireland's looking, I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout. Don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be at least 15 to 20 points margin in terms of favorites to Ireland. And, despite the fact that Italy is coming back really renewed, they're coming back with a new vigor in terms of how they play. It'll take over flawless game to be relatively competitive with this Andy Farrell Ireland side. I think Andy Farrell is really pissed off in this World Cup. I'm sure a lot of those guys are, and they're coming for blood, and they're going to wreck house in preparation for this Lions tournament next year. It'll probably be maybe a close matchup in the first 20, and then after that, boom, sweep. I think that's really all we need to really say on that. Go Ireland. Andy Farrell, you're a freak of nature. Please keep Togburn on the field and feed him the ball. And also, please get Robbie Henshaw the ball. I love you long time. Okay. Anyways, let's go across the pond a little bit and let's talk about a little thing I like to call Anthem RC because on the good news, they did release their lineup. I saw a lot of solid options on their squad. All of them are USA qualified. And they got 2 World Cup veterans, obviously, on the side from USA. Really excited about that. You got Jake Turnbull. You got Joao Piquetoa. You got Mika Felix. You got Stefan Bernal Wendt. Obviously, go Titans, up the boys. Tease up, baby. Y'all know where it's at. That's the Hawaii boy. Yes, sir. We got James Rivers. He's a freak. They got him on loan. You got Sione Latu, another freak of nature. Played against him in camp. Michael Mafu, nice guy, great player. You got Sean Akubian, real nasty when it comes to playing 9. I'm excited to see him fully out there and playing. Shane Barry, great guy. Cliven Lobster, I would love to see him play more. Kale Hodgson, that'll be an interesting one. Junior Gaffa and Teranga Rio, right Tokia. Whoo, they got some heat. I can't believe they got him off of Toronto. Like to see him go. Man, and get this. This is going to be an interesting one. They got Ty Al-Jabori somehow from Seattle. I don't know how they managed to pull that off, but, salary cap considerations be what they may. And this is probably, his 3rd or 4th team since he got drafted. So hope he stays in there. It'll be interesting to see. You got Matteo Gladson, and obviously to finish it off, you got Caleb Strom. Obviously, I think the biggest thing that you need to look at this is that it's full of young talent. And I think that's the good thing, is not only probably a lot of the Hawks players, but you're looking at probably future Eagles. And obviously you got some with Jake Turnbull in there as well. You hope to build the continuity and the staff can elevate above the league system that we're currently at, which is probably a tier 2 or 3 system anyway, to build their own success. And I think that's needed, obviously, for the World Cup in 4 years. Not only that, but when the World Cup comes to our soil in 2031 and hopefully 2035. Obviously some guys like James Rivers and Ty Al-Jabori are only on loan for the year. So I don't know how this team will work in the next year. Perhaps they'll sign them to bigger contracts. Obviously a lot of these guys were traded for salary cap and international player slots for this year and possibly for next year as well. But nice to be seen that they have a little bit more of a concrete plan. Perhaps they'll get that later. This is kind of more spur of the moment type of thing. That's where I'm kind of getting out of that. As for the coach, I know last week I said I didn't know who the coach was. It's nice to see that I can finally tell who it is. It is Coach, I'm probably going to butcher this, Alama Leremia, who has a productive pedigree with his playing time, not only with the Hurricanes, All Black 7s and 15s, but also with Samoa to close out his career. When you look at his playing career, I wasn't really able to get a lot of highlights, so I couldn't really see him play. But if you look at the stops he's made and the players not only he's rubbed shoulders with, but the players he's also coached under and with, it is a lofty list, and I'm expecting him to at least provide some form of consistency and culture development with this USA side. Obviously, the identity has been something that's been missing for a long time. It's going to be nice to finally see that more fleshed out, I guess you could say, in 2024. His coaching stops include a great list of great things. Obviously, he's coached with the Hurricanes. He did coach with Samoa and Auckland during their title runs with the NPC over the last 4 years. And this year was his first, last year, obviously in 2023, during where he was the coach for the USA Hawks and a USA development coach with Scott Lawrence. You may have changed my mind, at least initially, with this lineup, with this coaching staff. This could work. I have hope. There's a lot of good things that I'm seeing out of this Anthem team that could lead to better things for USA. It's one thing I've been really losing out on, and it's just like you can't be the host of a World Cup and have the best athletes, quote unquote, and then still be as junk as we are. So seeing this could really mean a lot to not only the USA in the future, but also for the MLR moving forward, a great marketing tool for them to obviously bring more of these overseas USA players back. Perhaps you can get a Samuel Malolo back. You maybe get an AJ McGinty back. That would be an interesting lineup to play. I think you have another, I forget. I'm blanking on his name, but he's the 9 for Saracens now. He was a freak of nature. I would love to see him back as well. Perhaps he could play an Anthem. I would love to see him tear up the MLR. But let's move a little bit north. I think we have an interesting development through MLR. This is just a rumor mill. This is more me speculating, obviously, but this could be probably the next hugest development next to Anthem in the MLR space, is just looking at what Vancouver is ready to do. I expect them to make a push to be in this MLR slate starting next year in 2025 with Mexico. I think there's a lot of remaining Toronto players who are spurned by the fact that they were not really thought of in this dispersal draft who made the trek west to Vancouver. Obviously, as most of you probably know, or for those of you who don't know, if you know, you know, Vancouver was supposed to be the prime MLR spot for Canada before they moved to Toronto because of the great backing of their founder who has since passed away. Obviously, and with that now, they have moved it back to Vancouver. They have the facilities, the better players. You know, a lot of those guys in Rugby Canada play out of Vancouver or Calgary. They're almost in that western side, so it is nice to have them back home. It's probably going to be, again, the full new home for Rugby Canada. I think Toronto is kind of, I'm not going to say left out to dry, but I will say left a little bit wanting in that regard. You know, during the MLR special, they're probably going to bring in a lot of foreign stars. They've already done a little bit of it through Milani Nanai from the Blues. For those of you who watch Super Rugby, y'all know Milani Nanai is a freak, or at least when he was playing with the Blues. He's since been in Japan, I've noticed, and by the looks of it, had some decent success there to obviously build the game. It'll be nice to see him in the MLR. I would love to see him cross somebody up because he has a filthy step. I think it would make a ton of sense given the fact that they can bring back in that North American eligibility through Canada, bring up Canada, obviously maybe get some more funds, get some more tourism. Vancouver is a great city to visit. And obviously world-class facilities are there because Rugby Canada plays out of there. So it's beautiful. Plug and play. It's the most brainless thing to do. Put them in, watch them succeed again. Canada needs to be back in the MLR. Mexico should deserve a spot at the table at least, and it'll be great to see them play. But that's going to be it for me, guys, this week. I'm going to go back to watching a little bit of Super Rugby preseason. Nice to see you guys again. Hope to see you guys on Monday. Peace.